I never expected a single text to erase 15 years of family, but there it was, glowing on my phone screen, simple and merciless. Don't call or don't come. It's over between us. My name felt hollow as I read it, like it belonged to someone else. The cup of tea in my hand went cold. The quiet in my apartment was deafening. I sat down, stared at the floor, and whispered the only response I could. Got it. My name is Elena. I'm 33, and for as long as I can remember, my family treated me like I was optional. From childhood, I knew I wasn't the chosen one. My brother Jason had always been the golden child. Every achievement I made was acknowledged only in passing. Every sacrifice I offered invisible. But for years I had believed in family, blindly, relentlessly, until the night I overheard my parents talking about leaving everything to him, and the text arrived to confirm that the truth was now final. From the outside, we looked normal. Dad owned several restaurants across Portland, all painted with his name in big gold letters. Hayes Dining, the pride of his empire. Mom managed the books and the bills. Jason had charm, confidence, a way of making every room revolve around him. And me? I quietly held up the parts of the family that no one saw. Every payment, every favor, every time I had bailed them out financially, emotionally, practically, I carried it all silently. Christmas cards? Perfect. Matching sweaters, forced smiles, pearls glinting under the tree lights. But behind the camera, behind the smiles, was a hierarchy I could never break. Dad would tell me, Jason has business in his blood. You have art. Art, he said, like it was a burden. He rewarded Jason for every reckless decision and punished me for the smallest mistakes. A mountain bike at 14? Jason got brand new. Me? Garage sale, spray painted blue to match his. A parking ticket at 17? Car privileges revoked for a month. Even when I left for design school in Seattle, waving my acceptance letter like it was oxygen, they barely noticed. If you walk away from the restaurants, you walk away from this family, Dad said. Mom just nodded silently behind him. Jason smirked like he had already won. So I left. Life outside their shadow wasn't easy. I worked nights as a waitress, tutored design freshmen during the day, lived on instant noodles and caffeine. I sent postcards home, year after year, but never received a reply. And yet I made it. Graduated with honors, came back to Portland, started taking small projects, designing apartments, offices, restaurants. Funny how I ended up building the same kind of business as Dad owned. By 33, clients trusted me more than my own family ever had. And yet, when Mom got sick, I was the first to step in. Chemo, radiation, specialists across states, I handled it all. Paid every bill without hesitation. Arranged flights, hotels, treatments. When she went into remission, her thanks came in a single text. Thank you for everything, sweetie. That was it. No hug, no phone call, just those words. Years later, Jason called with his big idea, a food truck. 6 months later, it crashed. I sent him $25K to keep him afloat, another $15K to help Dad's restaurants when equipment failed. He bragged about restructuring, never acknowledging my help. Love makes you give long after the accounts are empty, I reminded myself. But family isn't built on transactions. It's built on respect. And in my family, respect wasn't on offer. So when Dad called for a family dinner to discuss business, I said yes. I thought maybe finally they'd ask for my ideas. Instead, that night, I overheard it all. Dad saying, everything goes to Jason. She just goes about her life. Jason is the future. Mom stayed silent. Jason smirked. And just like that, I realized I had never been part of their legacy. I wasn't the daughter. I wasn't the future. I was the wallet. I hadn't planned to be there. I was supposed to grab takeout and leave. But I had left my old design portfolio in their attic. College sketches I needed for a client presentation. I drove over. The house glowed with familiar warmth, smell of Mom's pot roast greeting me. For a moment, it felt like home again. But then Dad's voice cut through the light. Everything goes to Jason. I froze. My chest tightened. Years of sacrifice, hidden in the background, erased in a few words. Mom didn't defend me. She didn't flinch. She just ate. I backed away slowly, gripping the banister as if it could anchor me to sanity. I left quietly, heart pounding, mind screaming. Driving home, I replayed every moment of that night, every slight, every invisible insult, every ignored act of love. And then came the text. Don't call or don't come. It's over between us. No punctuation, no apology, no reasoning, just finality. And suddenly, everything I had done for them, every bill paid, every favor, every sleepless night, was meaningless. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I sat in the dark, scrolling through years of bank statements, invoices, receipts, hospital bills, Jason's food truck, Dad's restaurant equipment, Mom's prescriptions. Every line tied me to them like a chain, invisible yet unbreakable. And for the first time, I decided to break it. Click, cancel, click, cancel. One by one, I severed every connection I had to them. Every automatic payment, every account, every financial lifeline, gone. The sound of each click echoed in the quiet of my apartment, louder than any argument, any insult, any plea. A quiet rebellion, only I could hear it. Then I opened the folder I had brought from their attic, the same design portfolio Dad had dismissed years ago. Each page held my ideas, my work, my intellect. They had laughed at it once. Now it would become my weapon. I contacted an old connection from a hospitality conference, a project manager at Pacific Restaurant Group. "Hey," I said, light and casual. "Remember that sustainability concept I mentioned? The full proposal is ready. Can we meet tomorrow?" They said yes. I hung up. For the first time in months, the air in my apartment felt clean, real, alive. I had finally stopped carrying their expectations. That evening, phone calls began flashing. Jason, Dad, Mom. Every call ignored. I had work to do. I had a future to claim. By midnight, all traces of them were erased from my finances. The only thing left was silence. And in that silence, I felt something new. A calm I had never known. Not sorrow, not fear, not longing, just freedom. The next morning, emails from Pacific Restaurant Group awaited me. Subject: loved your concept. Can we meet tomorrow to discuss partnership? I smiled. They had tried to cut me off. They had tried to erase me, but all it did was clear the path for what I was truly capable of. By noon, the calls turned desperate. Dad's email: urgent. Restore payments immediately. Jason's texts: you're ruining the restaurants. You owe us. I put the phone down, poured coffee, whispered, I don't owe you anything. That evening, I left my office, walking into the drizzle outside. Jason stepped out from the shadows, eyes glassy. You think you can just walk away? He demanded. No, Jason, I said softly. I think I finally stopped pretending we're family. He clenched his jaw, fists twitching, rage in his posture. But the tremor in his voice told me he already knew he'd lost control. 3 days later, Madison appeared at my office, tear-streaked, holding a folder. Inside, receipts, bank statements, and evidence. Jason had been siphoning funds from Dad's restaurants for years. Madison, I whispered, heart racing. You just gave me everything I needed. The next afternoon, Dad, Mom, and Jason were at Bridge Cafe downtown. I arrived calm, prepared. I laid the evidence before them. Madison's folder, the proof of Jason's theft, my portfolio proving my vision and worth. Dad's face went pale. Mom's lips parted in shock. Jason's smirk vanished. I sold my proposal to Pacific Restaurant Group for $500,000. Silence filled the cafe. Let's see how your chosen son saves you now, I murmured, standing tall. They had thought cutting me off would destroy me. But all it did was allow me to rise. That evening, I walked into the rain, feeling alive, free, and untouchable. Peace had a taste I'd never known. The morning after the Bridge Cafe confrontation, I woke to a quiet apartment. The city outside buzzed as usual, oblivious to the storm I had unleashed on my family. I poured coffee, sat at my desk, and watched the rain streak down the window. Each drop mirrored the calm in my chest, the kind of serenity that only comes from finally reclaiming your life. Jason didn't call that morning. Dad didn't email. Mom didn't text. And that silence, it was sweeter than any applause I'd ever received. For years, I had carried their expectations, their disappointments, their financial burdens. Every sacrifice I made, every sleepless night, every dollar sent to bail them out. It had been mine to give, and I gave it willingly. But they had never acknowledged it, never defended me, never truly seen me. Now they would see me, but not the me that begged for approval, the me that silently bore the weight of their family empire. They would see the me that had risen above, the me that had turned their ignorance and entitlement into fuel for my own success. By noon, the news reached me through a flurry of social media alerts and whispered calls from friends. Jason had been reported to the authorities. The missing funds, now fully documented and traced thanks to Madison's meticulous work, had been classified as embezzlement. Civil suits and criminal charges were already underway. Every restaurant Dad owned, each location, each asset, was being audited, with lawyers questioning every past transaction. I sipped my coffee, leaning back in my chair. It wasn't revenge in the traditional sense. I hadn't needed to yell, hadn't needed to confront them violently or publicly humiliate them. Their downfall was the natural consequence of their choices, and my decision to finally step away. Madison had been invaluable. She had been engaged to Jason, had witnessed firsthand his recklessness, and had carefully documented everything over the last several years. When she handed me the folder, tear-streaked and trembling, she had said, "I can't marry him. I won't marry someone who steals from his own family." And in that instant, I knew the final pieces were falling into place. Dad's first reaction to the audit news was disbelief, followed by panic. He had built his empire on appearances, on loyalty, and on the illusion that Jason was the future. Now, with Jason facing legal consequences and the company's finances in disarray, he realized just how little control he had ever had. Mom, ever silent, had begun to understand the cost of her inaction, the cost of never defending me, of letting Jason take every opportunity while I worked in the shadows. By the end of the week, the full scope of their losses became public. Bankruptcy filings were everywhere. Employees were being laid off. Suppliers demanded immediate payment for debts Jason had mismanaged. Their world, which had once seemed so unshakable, crumbled beneath them. And me? I watched it all from the safety of my apartment, my business thriving. My $500,000 deal with Pacific Restaurant Group had gone through without a hitch. I had positioned myself to expand, to grow, to take risks, and reap rewards, without waiting for approval from the family who had never supported me. Even then, I didn't gloat. I didn't post pictures of my success or send taunting messages. The satisfaction was quieter, more profound. It was in the knowledge that I had finally prioritized myself, that I had severed the chains of obligation and finally walked freely. Weeks passed. Jason's court dates began. Each hearing confirmed what I already knew. The family I had loved and sacrificed for would never be mine. Their empire had crumbled, but I remained unbroken. Mom reached out once, hesitant, timid. Her message was short. "Elena, I don't know what to say. I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long moment. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, and then I typed one word, slow and deliberate. Understood. It was not forgiveness, not reconciliation. It was acknowledgement, recognition that I had survived, that I had grown, that I was no longer defined by their approval or their neglect. Business continued to flourish. I expanded my design firm, hired a team of talented individuals who respected me and my vision, and opened projects that challenged me creatively and financially. Clients trusted me because I delivered results, because I had proven through my work that I was capable, independent, and resilient. The city became my stage, my accomplishments, my affirmation. Occasionally I thought of them, not with anger, not with longing, but with the detached curiosity of someone who has outgrown their past. I wondered if Dad had learned humility, if Mom had learned courage, if Jason had learned accountability. But those were questions I no longer needed answered. Their world was theirs. Mine was mine. Madison stayed in my life, a friend and ally, guiding me through some of the more complicated aspects of Jason's legal aftermath. Her courage had been pivotal in bringing truth to light, and I was grateful beyond words. We often met for coffee, discussing projects, life, and the strange way that justice sometimes unfolds. Not with a bang, but with quiet, persistent pressure. One evening, I found myself walking past the old Hayes family home. It looked the same from the outside, familiar and unassuming. I paused, taking in the sight. Memories surged. Christmas mornings, birthday parties, the endless sense of being overlooked. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel regret. I felt free. I walked inside briefly, just to stand in the spaces I had once inhabited. Empty rooms, echoes of laughter that had never been directed at me, shadows of a family that had failed me. I smiled faintly. The house was theirs, not mine, and that was exactly as it should be. As I left, I realized something important. The best revenge isn't loud, it isn't dramatic, it doesn't require confrontation or humiliation. The best revenge is building a life so full, so complete, that those who tried to hold you back cannot touch it. That they cannot diminish your achievements, cannot erase your growth, cannot sway your confidence. By the time the first snow fell that winter, I had grown more than I ever had in those years of servitude to my family. My firm had taken on 3 major international projects. My designs were featured in leading magazines. I was respected, admired, and independent. And through it all, there was a quiet satisfaction in knowing that I had done it all on my own terms. Jason, Dad, and Mom remained figures in the background of my life. Occasionally, I heard snippets, news of bankruptcy settlements, court decisions, or small mentions in gossip columns. Each update reaffirmed what I already knew. I had broken free. I had claimed my own destiny. One evening, as I walked along the waterfront, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I paused to reflect. The city shimmered in amber and gold, lights reflecting off the water. I felt the weight of the past lift from my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running from pain, from expectation, from disappointment. I was running toward possibility, and in that moment, I realized the final truth. Family is not defined by blood, or inheritance, or shared history. Family is defined by respect, support, and love. I had given them every chance to be my family. They had failed. But I had succeeded in creating my own world, a life rich with purpose, filled with allies, built on the foundation of my own resilience. I whispered to the cold evening air. Got it. The words weren't for them. They were for me. I continued walking, each step steady, each breath deep. Behind me, the city pulsed with life, oblivious to the quiet revolution of one woman's independence. I had not just survived. I had thrived. I had reclaimed my name, my worth, and my peace. And that, more than money, more than recognition, more than revenge, was the victory I had longed for all my life. By the time I returned home, the first stars were shining. I poured a glass of wine, settled into my studio, and opened my laptop. $500,000 sat in my account, yes, but more importantly, a lifetime of effort, integrity, and vision had paid off in ways that no amount of betrayal could ever touch. And in the silence of my apartment, I smiled. Peace. Freedom. Vindication. Everything I had ever wanted, finally mine. No text, no argument, no confrontation could ever undo it. They had tried to erase me, but I had survived, grown, and built something unbreakable. The city lights glittered outside, and I realized that life, finally, was mine. Not borrowed, not conditional, mine. And that was worth every moment of the struggle, every sleepless night, every overlooked sacrifice. Because I had become my own family. And no one could take that away.